Hey, welcome back to Road Tripping with Rachel. I'm Rachel. Thanks so much for joining me here on my road trip. So, if you have been following along, you know that we have been working through the Gospel of John. So, as we are getting in, we know the cross is most definitely coming. We're within 24 hours of it now. Jesus has been telling the disciples this, that it is coming, and now he has prayed for them, and the hour has now come. So, Jesus is betrayed by Judas Iscariot. They actually showed up with like all of these people. Like they were prepared for like a riot and a mob, and Jesus is like, no, like it's me. I know you're here for me. Make sure you leave everybody else alone. One, this really fulfilled uh, the prophecy that none of the people who followed him was going to be hurt, but um, but also it denied the Pharisees the scene that they really wanted. Because if there had been a scene, then that would have just fed in to the story that the Pharisees were trying to concoct to make him look like this terrible person. Jesus is now in the control of the Pharisees. They have him. He's surrounded by soldiers. We're going to look at trial 1. Okay, so if you are following along, like in a Bible or your own personal study, I'm looking at chapter 18, 19, and 24, and then we're going to look at 12 through 14. So there are two important Jewish leaders that are mentioned here. We have Ananias and we have Caiaphas. So one is the high priest, one was a high priest, which means that they are both, for them to have been the high priest, they had to have come through the line of Aaron, and they are actually related. They're in-laws. So, they're keeping the power in the family, so to speak. But Caiaphas is actually the man in chapter 11 who actually, when they were saying like we're going to have to kill Jesus, he was the man who said it is better that one man dies for the nation rather than the nation all suffer. So that was Caiaphas. They've been looking for a valid reason in order to put Jesus to death. They start with what he's been teaching, but Jesus's basic response to this has been like, I've been public, like I have nothing to hide. Everything that I have said has been in teaching. It's been in the temple. It's been in the synagogue. Like if I needed to be stopped, there has been ample opportunity for people to have been able to have stopped him, but he has not said anything that would have been considered blasphemous. Like his answer to that. So while all this is going on, you also have Peter and the beloved disciple who people believe is John. So these two men choose to follow Jesus when he is taken away by the soldiers. The one who is never named, which we all assume is John. John, for whatever reason, knows the high priest family. There's some connection there, which it would indicate that John and his brother James actually came from a fairly influential family. So he goes in, he's able to more or less walk right in. He has conversations with people. Peter is just chilling outside. He's hanging out around trying to, stay warm. Both Peter and this other disciple, assumed to be John, they are recognized as being followers of Jesus, especially by the servant girl who actually let them in. We're talking John here, but Peter actually denies that he's one of the disciples. So I wonder if the recognition was separate, because if John was well known enough to get into the high priest's home and be able to walk into their courtyard, they probably know like what he's been up to. There's this man who was actually in the garden. One of the soldiers is there, and he recognizes Peter and is like, hey, you're one of the disciples. And Peter denies it, not once but twice, and then immediately the rooster crows. So and that would be verse 27. And when we backtracked a little bit into John chapter 13, Jesus is telling Peter, like, you're going to deny me. Like, you're saying all these big things, but you're actually going to be the one who denies that you even follow me, which puts Peter in his place, so to speak. If you read the Gospels, like all of them, you do see that Peter very much has a mouth that is the shape of his foot. He often just opens his mouth and speaks. I kind of always think of Peter as kind of this burly fisherman who is very passionate about whatever he is passionate about, but sometimes he will speak before he thinks about it, and then here he is when Jesus needs him most. when he could have benefited from having the support system, not because it was going to change anything, but just knowing that they were there. Which, I mean, he's God, he knows everything, but there is something to be said about having the physical presence there. And I mean, you do have to hand it to Peter and John. They at least went, even though Peter was not as supportive as he could have been during this. So we move past Peter's denial, and then we're into trial 2. The Jewish officials, they're not liking what they're getting out of Jesus, so they take him to the governor's house, which is Pontius Pilate. John gives what I read as being a very sarcastic comment. He's like, they did not enter the headquarters themselves because these are Gentiles. Otherwise, they would have been defiled and unable to eat Passover. So the leaders of the Jewish people are so concerned about making sure that they can participate in Passover and making sure that they observe these ceremonial laws about being clean and being undefiled, yet they are having all of these super secret trials with an innocent man and dragging him to the Gentiles to have something done with him. It's very hypocritical, and I think John was being a bit sassy with it. Reasonably, Pilate wants to know why the Jewish leaders are coming to him, because this is like a them issue, not a him issue. But it still had to be justifiable. Like the main one being, which we'll see later on as it plays out, specifically you had to be usurping Roman rule, or someone is declaring themselves a king, which is a major no-no in Rome. There is no king but Caesar in Rome. So then Pilate, reasonably, he wants to have a conversation with this guy. If you're being brought to me, I want to know why. And he's doing his due diligence as a leader within this time frame, based on what he's being told and what is being said and what's being insinuated. He couldn't just kill someone because they wanted to have them killed. There had to be a reason that he was going to put a man to death. It needed to be more than we just don't like him. So Pilate just flatly asked Jesus, like, are you the king of the Jews? Because that would answer the question, like, right off the bat. If you said, yes, I'm the king of the Jews, you're gone. You're gone. You're declaring yourself king. That's totally against the law. You can't do that. But Jesus doesn't make this easy on Pilate. So although Jesus knows what the outcome is going to be, he also forces those who are involved to confront their part in what's happening. You are asking, it's basically like, are you asking that on your own, or are you asking because of what others have said? Pilate basically tells Jesus that he isn't a Jew and has no interest in being involved in their politics, but he wants to know why Jesus' own people and their religious leaders are willing to hand him over on an accusation insinuating something that would ensure his death. The Jews could not come right out and say that Jesus had declared himself king, because Jesus didn't. And so they had to insinuate it. And Jesus does say, like, he's like, I am a king, but I'm not a king that's of this world. I have no earthly kingdom. In other words, he's not denying that he's a king, but he's also saying that Caesar has no reason to fear him politically. Like, he's like, my kingdom is not of this world. Caesar is in control because God the Father. Jesus was here for a purpose, and that purpose required that his people, who are covenanted to God through Abraham, which is in Genesis, you can go back and read all about that. His people want to kill the one person they have been waiting for, praying for, and hoping for. The one who was promised. Their Savior. Those who listen are able to hear the truth of who Jesus is. And that is what Jesus is also telling Pilate during this time. Pilate asks a very important question here that's never answered, like, by John. It is, what is truth? And that's in verse 38 of chapter 18. I think we could probably actually have a whole series on just what is truth, because this is more than just like a passing question. This is actually like a deep philosophical question that perception is believed to be the truth. An insinuation is just as damaging as saying something outright. The Jewish officials insinuated that Jesus had declared himself king. Therefore, Pilate has to have this conversation. So perception matters. This was something I often told students that I worked with, like, if it is perceived as being bad, it is bad. That is why it was always very important that you don't ever give someone a reason to say something bad about you. Especially, like, that was something I learned during seminary, was like, you can do everything right, but people are always going to think negatively about you, but don't give them a reason to do that. And that is one part of what I think Pilate is getting at here. The next thing, though, is that those who are in power are the people who decide that's what's true. What is truth can often be determined by who is in charge of a government. Whether that is like the United States, where we have a bicameral legislature with a president, and then in our justice system, or if you have like parliament like they do in the UK, or if you have whatever form of government that you have somewhere else, dictatorship. A dictatorship decides what's true and what's false. Normally their truth is that they are right in all things. What keeps the peace is understood to be truth. So even if it's something is wrong, if it keeps a mob from breaking out, we're going to consider it to be truth. I think these are some of the things that Pilate was getting at, because this is exactly the situation that they were in. This could be an entire discussion. I'm not saying I agree with any of those things. However, it is something to keep in mind with the question that Pilate is asking. And also, this isn't like a unique question. I think it's also something we have to keep in mind when we are engaging with a secular culture, that, what is truth? Students are dealing with it every day. What is truth? But I do, if you're new, I do like to pose questions that come up like during the reading, and the ones that are geared to making people think. Most of these are ones that I've also thought about, so I don't feel as bad asking them. But that doesn't always mean that they're appropriate for you to ask for someone who might be brand new to your group. There does need to be a certain level of trust that is built with some of these questions, because some of them are questions that do put people in a little bit of a situation of sharing some things they might not normally share with someone they didn't already have like a foundation of trust built with. So my first question that I would pose was, are you a Peter? Do you speak one way, and then when it counts, do you hide in the corner? That hurts. That one really hurts. Have you ever found yourself refusing to do something because it would be in the public eye, but being willing to do something you know is wrong in secret? That one hurts too. What is truth? We just spent some time talking about it. Pilate asked Jesus the question, and I gave a few short thoughts on what he may have been getting at. But in our world today, where truth is considered relative, what is truth? That is one I think that if you are in a small group, I really think you should be discussing. Because it might surprise you what some of your people in your group might say. And if you are dealing with students who might be in college or even high school, I think that's definitely an important one that you need to be having a discussion with, because our students need to know what they believe when they go off to college, and they need to be encouraged to find solid groups when they are in school. That way, they're not being lost to the world, especially if they decide that they want to go to a state college. Or if they are at the community college, that they find that good solid support system and they know how to look for one. But that is all I have on John chapter 18. We are trucking along. This means we only have 3 more chapters left, and that we will actually be finished with the Gospel of John within the next 6 weeks. So I hope you enjoyed this. If so, make sure that you like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification button. That way you'll find out whenever I do upload my videos. And make sure that you share it if you got something out of this. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye.